Hey guys, today I want to take you through how I make my MIDI drums absolutely massive, so let's jump right in. So when it comes to MIDI drums, I like to treat them exactly as I would if I was to record real drums. So I've got my MIDI drum track here basically. I'm running this Mixwave Under Oath kit. From this mixer, I'm routing everything out into separate tracks. So you can see here I've got my kick, my snare, my toms, my overhead, my rooms, my mono. So I can basically add my EQ, compression, effects, or re-triggers on top of everything as if I was recording a real drum kit. As everything's getting played, I'm not using anything more. This is on mute from the MIDI kit, but all the sounds are being routed out through these tracks so that I can adjust them each individually. My drum mix completed, I'll play through just so you've got a bit of know where we're at. And in the context of the song, so yeah, the way I basically get the drums to that point is routing everything out. I'm going to start with a kick drum. This is the kick that comes from the Mixwave kit. I'm basically dumping all of the bottom end out of it, giving that slight boost around 2K just for that clickiness. You'll see why, because in this second kick track, I am triggering it. So this is the triggered sound. That's carrying all the weight, all the thickness. That's basically most of my kick drum sound. And then I'm getting the clickiness from this guy as well. And I'm not really doing much to this. I am literally ducking out that click once again because I like the click of the kick that's coming from the Mixwave kit. I'm just ducking that out slightly, but together those sound sweet. And I think the main reason why is because that trigger sound is just absolutely elite. Over the years, I've collected heaps and heaps of samples. These are just a few that are in my trigger library at the moment, but yeah, these Andrew Wade kicks, that's where I've got this from from Drum Shots, Andrew Wade. Kick direct, jumper kick is the one that's going in, and it absolutely punches every single time. If you've got a high energy, heavy song, that's gonna absolutely cut through. From there, you've got my snare drum. That's the snare drum coming from the Mixwave kit. So already these samples sound really nice, and that MIDI kit is basically in the genre and in the realm of where I want to be. That's probably got to be the most important thing, is if you start with a kit that's like for a country song or for an indie song, it's going to be a completely different vibe if you're trying to get a metal kit going or a post-hardcore kit going. It's not going to sound right. So do your research. There's a lot of great MIDI kits around. There's a lot of great samples, but they're going to get you the best starting point that you can get, basically. So that Under Oath kit is almost where I want to be, and then you can see there's not a lot of processing going on the drums, but I've made sure that I've routed everything properly. Everything's getting sent to its own track, so it's got its own fader, and I can basically get everything working how I want it. If I leave it all in Kontakt and try to do it from there, it's just not going to happen. These faders, and you don't have the control that you need basically to get it to a master ready sound. So with the snare drum, the one that's coming out of Mixwave already sounds pretty good. I'm just doing a slight cut here with EQ. Once again though, once I add this trigger in, that's giving me most of my sound. The trigger here is a little bit different. I've got a few things going into it. This black brass snare, I believe, comes from another Mixwave kit. I think it's the Avenged Sevenfold black brass snare. Yeah, it is Avenged Sevenfold Mixwave. The Mixwave kits are awesome. They come with a MIDI player in Kontakt, but then they also give you trigger samples so you can use them over the top of drum sounds as well. I've also got this sledge snare, which once again, this is from, oh no, the sledge is on mute on this. I obviously did play around with that. That sledge snare is the same pack from that Andrew Wade pack, also slaps, but I think I ended up just going with this brass snare. It sounds a bit more natural. It's hard with snares. If there's a lot of variation in snare rolls, you're not going to get away with something like that Andrew Wade pack because they're one shots. They're your biggest shots and there's not much variation when it's triggered. So if you're trying to do light snare rolls, it's just going to go, it's just going to be ding, 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 and way too loud the whole way through. So with these mixed wave samples, they're actually triggered on velocity. So if you play your sample lower, or if you bring the velocity down, it's going to basically trigger a lighter sound, which is very intuitive and really what you want with more complex sort of hits. But yeah, with those kicks and snares, sounding awesome. The toms, once again, these are the toms coming from the mixed wave kit, so they sound good. I rolled with them. The EQ, I'm just scooping slight points that I thought poked out a bit too much, and then I'm gating it because the tom sounds had quite a long tail on them. So I'll find a section where there's a bit more toms. Yeah. So without those gates on, I'll cut them out. The ring is quite long. Especially that floor tom, it's and rings out. So I've used the gates basically just to, it hits and then it cuts out. It sounds unnatural when you're listening to just these sounds, but once you add the overheads and the room mics in, the toms are still filling out throughout those tracks. So that's where it brings back a bit more natural sound. Yeah, with the toms, I'll usually have my rack tom 50% to the left and my floor tom 50% to the right. That's about it with those. I don't really do too much with toms. I try to keep that pretty natural sounding. If you try to trigger toms, it can get quite of a headache as well, because toms like to have a ring. Once you have the hit, it'll be dum boom, and that can sort of re-trigger more hits than you want, and it can just start to become a pain in the ass. And I will just solo the overhead, room, and mono sound. This is where you're going to get the most natural sounding MIDI kit. You need to be using your room mics, you need to be using your overheads, and if you've got a mono trash mic, you need to be using that. That's where you're going to make it sound the most realistic. So you can hear already how thick those toms are in those tracks. If I play just the room, so this is the stereo room track. It sounds massive, it sounds thick. I've used CLA drums. This is just an all-in-one sort of plugin. It just worked for this occasion. Sometimes I'll put it through 1176 and absolutely crush it, and then I'll start to EQ a bit more, but this just worked for this project. Mind you, coming from that mixed wave MIDI kit, the room sounds already sounded quite nice. So if I take this out, it's not too drastic of a difference. I'm almost just pushing it back slightly to make it fit in the mix a bit more. And then with the EQ, I found there was a bit too much boominess in the room mics, especially when I'm running samples, and sometimes samples have their own room sound you can blend in. This was just a bit too much. So all I'm doing is cutting out a bit there. And it just helps tighten up the drums. The overheads, I'm doing the same, but I'm trying to take out a bit more low end. And same thing, I use the Chris Lord Algae thing. It's not about exactly what plugins you're using, it's just what works. So this worked for me at the time. I'm just boosting a little top end. I'm compressing, well, I'm not even compressing too much, that's on -2 there, but adding a bit of reverb as well. And I've got all these plugins disabled. Obviously I was fiddling around and trying to make something else work, but the CLA drums just worked for that. And then with the mono drum sound, same again, CLA, all I'm doing is compressing it this time and trying to crush it basically, so I'm driving that all the way up. With the EQ, I'm just scooping out that low end once again because it was a bit boomy with these room sounds. But I'll play you the whole kit together and I'll take out the room sounds and you'll hear how much of a drastic difference that makes. Without those rooms, your drums sound fake again. With the rooms, that's literally what's doing all the heavy lifting. So room mics are your friend. Make sure you always route everything out individually so you can control it as if you're recording a real drum kit. All the sounds coming through here are being rerouted back into a master drum bus, and this has got smash and grab on it. This is a Get Good Drums plugin. This is basically just tightening everything and pulling any peaks, or if something's hitting too loud, like a snare's poking out, it basically just pulls all the drums in, and it's a bit like glue. It's working like keeping everything stuck together. It's doing quite a lot of compression as well. You'll notice I don't have, on individual tracks, I don't have really any compression except for on my rooms, overheads, and mono mic. But on the kicks and snares and toms, I'm not compressing them at all. They're already quite heavily processed samples. So all the compression that's happening with those is running through this drum bus, and that's just pulling it all back in and grabbing those peaks and just sort of leveling everything out, but in quite a nice musical way and punchy drum sound way. So I'll play the whole song with the drums now. The last thing I do with choruses and with drums, I love to add a tambourine in. So I'm using Superior Drummer for that. It's got a really, really good feature with tambourine. I just drag the MIDI in basically, and just adds a little bit of something on top. Not a lot there, but yeah, that's pretty much how I get my drum sounds to where I want them to be. So let me know if this helped you out, or if you have any questions about drums in general or MIDI drums. Yeah, I'd love to know, and I'd love to hear your ideas on another video I could make.